Commander Jake Morrison walked into the massive council chamber with careful steps. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he could barely see the top. Alien beings filled hundreds of seats arranged in perfect circles around the speaking platform. Their eyes, sensors, and other strange body parts all focused on him as he approached the center podium, wore his best dress uniform with every metal polished to shine under the bright lights. His black hair was combed perfectly, and his face showed the calm respect that Earth had taught all its diplomats to display. Behind him walked Ambassador Lisa Carter, a woman with graying hair and kind eyes who had spent 3 years learning to speak the Council's many languages. The Galactic Council had existed for over 2,000 years before humans even discovered fire. Now Jake stood before representatives of 47 different alien species, each more advanced than Earth in ways the Council believed humans could never understand. The crystalline beings called Zephyrians looked like walking diamonds that sparkled with inner light. The Morvac resembled giant squids with tentacles that moved through the air like graceful dancers. The insect-like Kresh clicked and buzzed. When they spoke, their compound eyes reflecting rainbow colors. Ambassador Carter stepped forward first, as protocol demanded. She bowed deeply to High Counselor Vextai, the eldest Morvac whose purple tentacles had turned silver with age. "Honored council members," she said in perfect galactic standard, "humanity thanks you once again for allowing us to speak before this great assembly." Vextai's voice rumbled through water-filled speakers that translated his words. "Young humans, you may approach. The Council will hear your weekly report on your species' progress in civilized development." Jake tried not to smile at those words. 3 years ago, when Earth first made contact with the Council, humanity had presented itself as a young species, just learning to travel between stars. They showed the aliens basic fusion rockets, simple laser weapons, and computers that seemed primitive by galactic standards. The Council had welcomed them as students who needed guidance from their betters. "Counselor Vextai," Jake began, "Earth continues to follow all Council regulations for developing species. Our 12 exploration ships remain in designated sectors, conducting research and mineral surveys. We have established trade relationships with approved partners, and our scientists work hard to understand the technologies you have graciously shared with us." This was all true, but not the complete truth. Earth did have 12 ships in Council space, but they called them exploration vessels while keeping their real capabilities hidden. Each ship carried technology that would make the Council's finest warships look like ancient sailing boats. The crews pretended to be civilian scientists and researchers, but every person aboard held military training that surpassed anything the Council had ever seen. Admiral Kevin Hayes commanded the human fleet from his flagship, a ship the Council knew as the research vessel Peaceful Dawn. The aliens saw a modest craft with basic sensors and defensive shields. They had no idea that beneath the ordinary-looking hull lay weapon systems that could crack a planet's crust and engines that could cross the galaxy in days rather than months. Dr. Amanda Brooks stood beside the Admiral on the bridge, reviewing reports that the Council would never see. Her official title was Chief Science Officer, but her real job involved analyzing every piece of alien technology that humans encountered. For 3 years, she had studied Council ships, weapons, computers, and manufacturing methods. The results always surprised her. "Admiral," she said quietly, "their shield technology is at least 50 years behind what we developed in the 2150s. Their fastest ships use the same fusion principles we abandoned when we invented quantum tunneling drives." Admiral Hayes nodded while watching the Council chamber through hidden cameras. Every human ship contained surveillance equipment that the aliens could never detect. Earth's intelligence services had spent 3 years mapping Council military capabilities, political structures, and technological weaknesses. The picture they painted was both amusing and concerning. The Council believed they were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Their ships were large and impressive. Their cities stretched across entire continents, and their weapons could destroy asteroids with ease. To them, humanity represented a curiosity, a young species that might someday reach a fraction of their achievements. Jake continued his report to the Council, describing how human colonies were growing and how Earth scientists were slowly learning to understand advanced alien concepts. He mentioned the new mining operations in the Centauri system and the agricultural projects on New Boston. Every word was carefully chosen to maintain the image of humanity as eager students grateful for Council guidance. What he did not mention was that human colonies used terraforming technology that could transform dead worlds into garden paradises in less than a decade. He did not describe the manufacturing facilities that could build entire cities in weeks, or the defensive systems that made human worlds nearly invulnerable to attack. The Council saw small settlements struggling to grow food and mine basic minerals, never imagining the industrial might that Earth kept carefully hidden. Zaf, the primary Kresh ambassador, clicked his mandibles in what humans had learned was amusement. Tell us, Small Commander Morrison, how do your people plan to contribute to Council security? The Outer Rim worlds face constant threats from pirates and raiders. Perhaps your species could provide supply ships or medical support for our brave defenders. Jake's face remained perfectly calm, even though the question annoyed him. The pirates and raiders that troubled the Council were small groups using stolen alien technology. A single human patrol ship could eliminate every criminal organization in the galaxy without working hard. But the Council saw humans as useful only for carrying supplies and treating wounded alien soldiers. We would be honored to assist Council forces in any way our limited capabilities allow, Jake replied. Earth's medical knowledge continues to grow under your guidance, and our cargo vessels could certainly transport materials to wherever they are needed. The lie came easily after 3 years of practice. Human medical technology included nanotechnology that could rebuild damaged organs in minutes, and life extension treatments that could keep people healthy for centuries. Their cargo ships were actually military transports capable of moving entire armies across galactic distances faster than Council communications could travel. Ambassador Carter stepped forward again as Jake's time at the podium ended. The Council's wisdom guides humanity toward a better future, she said with perfect sincerity. We hope that someday our children might prove worthy of the trust you have shown us. High Counselor Vextai's tentacles waved in approval. Young species must learn patience above all else. In time, perhaps in a few centuries, humanity might advance enough to take on greater responsibilities. Until then, continue your studies and follow the guidance of your betters. Jake and Ambassador Carter bowed respectfully before walking away from the podium. Around them, the Council members returned to discussing more important matters, like trade agreements between star systems and territorial disputes that had lasted for decades. The humans were dismissed as a minor curiosity, barely worth the Council's attention. As they left the Great Chamber, Jake activated a tiny communication device hidden in his uniform collar. The signal traveled through quantum channels that the Council had never discovered, reaching Earth in less than a second. On the other end, General Patricia Stone waited for his report. The performance continues as planned, Jake whispered. They still see us as harmless students. No changes to our operational security. General Stone's voice came back clear and strong. Understood, Commander. Maintain the facade until further orders. How long do you estimate before they realize what we really are? Jake looked back at the Council chamber, where alien beings debated matters they considered far beyond human understanding. 3 years of careful acting had convinced them that humanity posed no threat to their established order. They were so wrong that it would have been funny if the stakes were not so serious. "General," he replied, "they will never figure it out on their own. When the time comes to drop the act, it will shock them completely." Captain Ben Rodriguez stared at the sensor readings on his command screen and felt his stomach tighten with worry. The exploration vessel New Horizon drifted silently at the edge of the Kepler system, its hull designed to look like the basic research ship that the Council believed it to be. Around him, his crew maintained the careful act they had perfected over 3 years of service in alien space. Lieutenant Sophie Davis sat at the tactical station, her fingers dancing over controls that appeared simple, but actually commanded weapon systems more advanced than anything the Council had ever imagined. Her official record listed her as a xenobiology specialist studying alien plant life, but her real training included 15 years of combat experience and a doctorate in applied physics that focused on developing new ways to destroy enemy ships. "Captain," Sophie said quietly, "the readings are getting stronger. Whatever those things are, they are consuming everything in their path and moving faster than Council projections suggested they would." Dr. Ryan Palmer looked up from his medical station, where he pretended to catalog alien bacteria samples. The Council knew him as a simple doctor learning basic alien medicine, but Ryan had designed most of the nanotechnology that kept human soldiers alive in combat situations that would kill anyone else. His medical bay contained healing devices that could regrow lost limbs and repair brain damage that the Council considered impossible to treat. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases," Ryan said. "These void swarm entities seem to be converting matter directly into some kind of mechanical components. They are not just destroying worlds, they are rebuilding them into something else entirely." Ben nodded grimly as he studied the tactical display that showed the approaching threat. For months, reports had been coming in from the Outer Rim territories about strange machines that appeared without warning and consumed everything they encountered. The Council had dismissed these reports as exaggerated tales from frightened colonists, but Ben's sensors told a different story. The void swarm was real, and it was heading toward the core systems, where billions of aliens lived in cities that had stood for thousands of years. Each swarm unit appeared to be a self-replicating machine about the size of a small moon, but the things moved with purpose and intelligence. That suggested they were more than simple robots following basic programming. 3 days ago, the first major world had fallen to the swarm advance. Nexus Prime, a Zephyrian colony with over 40 million inhabitants, had simply vanished from all communication networks. Council scouts sent to investigate found nothing but empty space where a thriving planet had once orbited its star. The massive world had been completely consumed, leaving behind only strange metallic debris that pulsed with unknown energy. Ben opened a secure channel to Admiral Kevin Hayes aboard the Peaceful Dawn. The communication used quantum encryption that made it impossible for Council technology to detect or decode. "Admiral, the situation is deteriorating faster than our models predicted. The swarm has taken 7 more worlds in the past 48 hours." Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen, his face showing the strain of maintaining their cover story while watching an entire galactic civilization face extinction. Behind him, the bridge of his ship buzzed with activity as crew members monitored developments across dozens of star systems. "Captain Rodriguez, what is the Council's official response to the crisis?" Ben pulled up the reports that had been transmitted through official Council channels. "High Counselor Vex Tai has ordered all military forces to establish defensive perimeters around core worlds. Admiral Kexvar of the Kresh believes that standard energy barriers will stop the swarm advance. The Zephyrian Military Command thinks they can destroy the machines using concentrated crystal beam weapons." Both men knew how foolish those strategies were. Human sensors had analyzed swarm technology from a safe distance and found defenses that could absorb energy attacks that would normally crack a moon in half. The Council's weapons were impressive by their own standards, but they relied on principles that the swarm had obviously been designed to counter. "Sir," Sophie interrupted, "I am detecting Council fleet movements throughout the sector. It looks like they are preparing for a major engagement near the Altair system." Admiral Hayes studied the tactical information that Sophie transmitted to his ship. Hundreds of Council vessels were converging on what their commanders believed would be a decisive battle against the Void Swarm. The alien ships represented the finest military technology that 47 species had developed over thousands of years, but Ben could see the flaws in their approach. "They are planning to meet the swarm in open space using traditional formation tactics," Ben observed. "Their heavy cruisers will form defensive lines while fighters attempt to penetrate swarm formations. It is the same strategy they have used for centuries against conventional enemies." Dr. Ryan pulled up medical reports from the few survivors who had escaped swarm attacks. "Captain, the biological effects are worse than we thought. The machines do not just consume matter, they also seem to convert living beings into some kind of hybrid components." The survivors described seeing their friends and family transformed into mechanical parts that the swarm uses to improve its own systems. Ben felt cold anger building in his chest as he read the reports. The Council had spent 3 years treating humanity like children who needed protection and guidance, but now those same aliens faced a threat they could not understand or defeat. Their arrogance and dismissive attitude toward newer species had blinded them to dangers that human technology could have detected and analyzed months earlier. Lieutenant Sophie Davis received an urgent transmission from Council command frequencies. "Captain, they are ordering all non-military vessels to evacuate from the outer systems immediately. That includes us, since they think we are just a research ship." Ben looked at his crew and saw the same frustration that he felt. They had weapons that could stop the Void Swarm, shields that could protect entire worlds, and tactical knowledge that could save millions of lives. Instead, they were expected to run away while the Council's inferior forces marched toward certain defeat. "What are our orders from Earth?" Ben asked Admiral Hayes. The Admiral's expression grew grim. "General Stone has authorized us to provide covert assistance if Council forces are overwhelmed, but we must maintain our cover at all costs. The diplomatic mission takes priority over all other considerations." Ben understood the logic behind those orders, but it felt wrong to watch a galactic civilization destroy itself through pride and ignorance. Humanity had spent decades developing strategies to deal with self-replicating machine threats after their own encounters with similar enemies. The solutions were complex but achievable, requiring coordination between multiple technology systems that the Council had never learned to integrate. "Sir," Sophie said, "long-range sensors are detecting the first engagement between Council forces and the Void Swarm. The battle has begun near Altair Station." Ben watched the tactical display as hundreds of Council ships opened fire on swarm units that moved with mechanical precision. The alien weapons created brilliant displays of light as energy beams and plasma charges struck swarm defensive barriers. For a few minutes, it looked like the Council forces might achieve victory through sheer overwhelming firepower. Then the swarm began to adapt. The machines analyzed each weapon that struck them and modified their defenses to absorb or redirect similar attacks. Council energy beams that had worked perfectly at the start of the battle became useless as swarm barriers learned to counter them. Plasma charges that should have destroyed enemy units simply added energy to swarm power systems. "The Council forces are losing cohesion," Sophie reported. "Swarm units are targeting command ships first, disrupting alien communication networks. Without central coordination, the different species cannot work together effectively." Dr. Ryan monitored medical emergency channels as reports came in from damaged Council vessels. Casualty rates are exceeding 50% across the entire fleet. Their medical systems cannot handle the types of injuries that swarm weapons cause. Ben knew that human medical technology could save most of those alien lives, but his orders required him to maintain the pretense that humanity lacked such advanced capabilities. He watched helplessly as Council ships exploded or drifted powerless through space, while their crews died from injuries that human doctors could treat in minutes. Admiral Hayes contacted him again as the battle reached its climax. Captain Rodriguez, prepare to withdraw to the designated safety zone. Council command is ordering all civilian vessels to retreat immediately. Ben looked at his crew one more time before giving the order to move away from the battle zone. They would follow orders and maintain their cover while the Council learned the hard way that their technology was not sufficient to deal with threats like the Void Swarm. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Ben wondered how long humanity could continue this charade before their conscience demanded action. Captain Ben Rodriguez watched the tactical display with growing horror as the last Council defense fleet disappeared from his sensors. The battle near Altair Station had lasted only 6 hours, but in that time the Void Swarm had completely destroyed over 300 alien warships without losing a single unit of their own. The mechanical entities moved through space like a plague of metal locusts, consuming everything in their path and growing stronger with each victory. Lieutenant Sophie Davis turned from her station with a pale face. Captain, emergency broadcasts are coming in from 17 different star systems. The swarm has broken through all Council defensive lines and is spreading in multiple directions simultaneously. They estimate that core worlds will be under attack within 72 hours. Dr. Ryan Palmer looked up from his medical console where he had been monitoring casualty reports from the failed battle. The few survivors described swarm tactics that adapt in real time to counter any strategy the Council attempts. Their weapons learn from each engagement and become more effective against similar targets. It is like fighting an enemy that remembers every mistake you make and never repeats its own. Ben felt sick as he realized what this meant for the billions of civilians living on Council worlds. The alien governments had spent thousands of years believing that their technology represented the peak of galactic achievement. They had built their entire civilization around the assumption that nothing in the universe could threaten their established order. Now they faced an enemy that made their finest weapons look like primitive tools. The communication system crackled to life with an encrypted message from Admiral Kevin Hayes. All human vessels, this is Admiral Hayes with updated orders from Earth Command. General Stone has authorized limited intervention to protect human colonies, but our cover mission remains the primary objective. We are to assist only if directly threatened. Ben understood the logic behind those orders, but they felt inadequate when measured against the scale of the crisis. The human colony of New Boston housed 50,000 civilians in what the Council considered a protected sector. The colonists believed they were safe under alien military protection, never knowing that their real security came from hidden human defense systems that could vaporize any conventional threat. Captain, Sophie said urgently, I am detecting swarm scout units moving toward the New Boston system. Estimated arrival time is 18 hours. Ben opened a channel to the Council garrison commander responsible for protecting human colonies. Crystal 7 was a Zephyrian officer whose crystalline body reflected light in patterns that indicated supreme confidence in his abilities. The alien had treated human requests with condescending patience for 3 years, always reminding them that their primitive species needed guidance from their betters. Commander Crystal 7, this is Captain Rodriguez aboard the research vessel New Horizon. Our sensors indicate possible hostile contact approaching the New Boston colony. Request permission to evacuate civilian population immediately. The Zephyrians. Response came through speakers that translated his light patterns into audible words. Captain Rodriguez, your primitive sensors must be malfunctioning. Council defensive networks show no threats in this sector. Human vessels will maintain current positions and avoid interfering with military operations. Ben looked at Sophie, who shook her head in disbelief. Human sensors were so far advanced beyond Council technology that comparing them was like comparing telescopes to naked eyes. The New Horizon could detect and track individual swarm units across dozens of light years, while Council sensors apparently could not see threats until they were practically on top of them. Sir, Dr. Ryan said quietly, the colonists on New Boston include families with children who have never seen Earth. They were born believing that the Council would protect them from any danger. They have no idea that their safety depends on technology that the aliens do not even know exists. Ben made a decision that he knew might end his career. He opened a private channel to Admiral Hayes using quantum encryption that made it impossible for Council forces to intercept. Admiral, requesting permission to reveal defensive capabilities if New Boston comes under direct attack. I cannot. Stand by and watch 50,000 civilians die to protect a diplomatic mission. Admiral Hayes was quiet for several long seconds before responding. Captain Rodriguez, your request is noted and understood. However, our orders from General Stone are clear. Maintain cover at all costs, unless directly authorized to do otherwise. Ben closed the channel and turned back to his tactical display. The swarm scouts were moving faster than Council projections had suggested they could travel. Instead of 18 hours, the enemy would reach New Boston in less than 12. He could see the mechanical entities spreading out in formation patterns that suggested they planned to surround the entire star system before beginning their attack. Lieutenant Sophie Davis monitored Council military frequencies as alien commanders, struggled to understand what they were facing. Captain, the garrison at New Boston is requesting reinforcements from Sector Command. Crystal 7 is deploying his forces in standard defensive positions around the colony world. Ben knew how futile those preparations would be. Council tactics relied on establishing energy barriers and firing zones that worked well against conventional enemies, but the swarm had already proven that it could adapt to counter such strategies. The Zephyrian commander was preparing to fight the last war while facing an enemy that had evolved beyond anything in his experience. Dr. Ryan received medical emergency protocols from the New Boston Colony Hospital. Captain, they are preparing for possible evacuation, but their transport capacity can only handle about 10% of the population. The Council has assured them that evacuation will not be necessary. Ben watched as the first swarm units entered the outer edge of the New Boston system. The mechanical entities moved with perfect coordination, surrounding the star system like a closing fist. Council sensors finally detected their presence when they were already too close to escape, triggering emergency alarms throughout the alien command structure. Crystal 7's panicked voice came over the communication channels. All Council vessels, this is Garrison Command. Confirmed hostile contact throughout the system. Unknown mechanical entities approaching from multiple vectors. Implementing Emergency Defense Protocol 7. Ben knew that Emergency Defense Protocol 7 involved forming a protective shell around the colony world using all available ships and energy barriers. It was a strategy that had worked against pirates and raiders for decades. But the swarm was not a conventional enemy that would retreat when faced with determined resistance. Captain, Sophie said, the first engagement is beginning. Council forces are opening fire on swarm advance units. Ben watched through his advanced sensors as Crystal 7's ships launched their attack. Brilliant beams of crystalline energy struck swarm barriers and seemed to cause significant damage at first. The alien commander's confidence grew as several Enemy units appeared to lose power and drift helplessly through space. Then the swarm adapted. The mechanical entities analyzed the energy patterns that had damaged them and modified their defensive systems accordingly. Within minutes, identical attacks that had been effective became completely useless. But crystalline beams that should have destroyed enemy ships were absorbed and converted into power that made the swarm units stronger. The Council forces are losing cohesion, Sophie reported. Swarm units are targeting command vessels first. Without central coordination, different alien species cannot maintain their defensive formation. Dr. Ryan monitored emergency medical channels as reports came in from damaged Council ships. Casualty rates are exceeding 80%. The garrison medical facilities cannot handle the volume of injured personnel. Ben made his decision. He opened a channel to Admiral Hayes that used priority codes reserved for extreme emergencies. Admiral Hayes, this is Captain Rodriguez. The Council forces at New Boston are being destroyed. 50,000 human civilians will die in the next 4 hours unless we intervene. I am requesting immediate authorization to drop our cover and engage the enemy. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen, his face showing the strain of command decisions. That could change the course of galactic history. Behind him, Ben could see other human officers, monitoring the battle and waiting for orders that would determine whether their species remained hidden or revealed their true nature to the universe. Captain Rodriguez, Admiral Hayes said slowly, your request is denied. Maintain current position and prepare to observe Council defeat. General Stone's orders are absolute. Ben looked at his crew and saw the same anguish that he felt. They had weapons that could save those 50,000 lives, medical technology that could treat the wounded aliens, and defensive systems that could protect entire worlds from swarm attack. Instead, they were ordered to watch helplessly while people died to preserve a diplomatic mission that seemed increasingly pointless. Sir, Sophie said quietly, the Council forces are down to 30% strength. Crystal 7 is requesting immediate evacuation for all civilian personnel, but the swarm has surrounded the entire system. No ships can escape. Ben stared at the tactical display and made a choice that would haunt him for the rest of High Captain Ben Rodriguez stared at the tactical display as the last Council defense ship around New Boston exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Crystal 7's final transmission had been a desperate plea for any nearby vessels to assist with civilian evacuation, but no help was coming. The Void Swarm units moved closer to the colony world, where 50,000 human civilians waited for a rescue that their government had forbidden. Lieutenant Sophie Davis turned from her console with tears in her eyes. Captain, the colony's emergency broadcast is requesting immediate assistance from any ships in the area. They know the Council. Forces have been destroyed, and they are asking for help from anyone who can hear them. Dr. Ryan Palmer monitored the medical emergency channels, where panicked voices described swarm units beginning to land on the colony surface. Captain, the first wave of mechanical entities has reached the outer settlements. The colonists are reporting that their friends and neighbors are being converted into machine components while still alive. The screaming is getting worse. Ben felt something break inside his chest as he listened to the desperate calls for help coming from people who shared his language and his species. These were not alien strangers whose deaths he could rationalize for diplomatic purposes. These were human beings who had trusted their government to protect them, never knowing that their real defenders had been ordered to stand aside and watch them die. Admiral Hayes, Ben said into his communication system, this is Captain Rodriguez, making a formal request to engage the enemy. Human civilians are being murdered while we maintain a diplomatic charade that serves no purpose if our people are dead. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen, his face showing the same internal struggle that Ben felt. Behind the Admiral, other Human officers waited for orders that would either doom 50,000 civilians or expose humanity's greatest secret to an alien civilization that might react with fear and hostility. Captain Rodriguez, General Stone's orders remain unchanged. Maintain your position and do not reveal our capabilities under any circumstances. The diplomatic mission takes priority over all other considerations. Ben looked at his crew and saw Sophie Davis crying silently at her station while listening to the colony's death screams. Dr. Ryan Palmer sat with his head in his hands, knowing that his medical technology could save thousands of lives, but was forbidden to use it. Around the bridge, other crew members struggled with orders that demanded they sacrifice their own people to protect a secret that seemed increasingly meaningless. "Sir," Sophie said through her tears, "the swarm has reached the main colony center. They are broadcasting live video of the conversion process. I can see children being turned into mechanical parts while their parents watch helplessly." Ben made his decision without consulting Earth. "Command or Admiral Hayes." He stood up from his captain's chair and walked to the center of the bridge, where his crew could see him clearly. "All stations, this is Captain Rodriguez. I am assuming full responsibility for what happens next. We are going to save those people regardless of our orders." Admiral Hayes's voice crackled through the communication system. "Captain Rodriguez, you are directly violating your orders from Earth Command. Stand down immediately or face court-martial proceedings." Ben reached for the control panel that would drop their ship's disguise and reveal its true nature to the universe. "Admiral, court-martial me if we survive this. I refuse to watch human children die to protect a diplomatic mission. All crew, members who wish to follow orders may consider themselves relieved of duty." Not a single person on the bridge moved from their station. Lieutenant Sophie Davis wiped her tears and began powering up weapon systems that had been hidden for 3 years. Dr. Ryan Palmer activated medical systems that could treat injuries the Council had never imagined possible. Throughout the ship, crew members prepared to reveal technology that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "Admiral Hayes," Ben said calmly, "permission to drop the act and engage the enemy." Admiral Hayes stared at him through the communication screen for several long seconds. Behind the Admiral, Ben could see other human officers monitoring the situation in New Boston, where the screening had reached levels that made it difficult to listen to the emergency broadcasts. Finally, Admiral Hayes nodded slowly. "Permission granted, Captain. Gloves off. All human vessels are authorized to reveal full capabilities and engage the enemy with extreme prejudice." Ben's finger pressed the control that activated the new horizons. True nature. The ship's hull began to shift and expand as hidden systems came online for the first time in 3 years. Weapon ports opened along the vessel's sides, revealing plasma lance batteries that could destroy asteroids with single shots. Shield generators activated with power levels that made Council defensive systems look like toys. The engines reconfigured themselves into quantum tunneling drives that could cross galactic distances in hours rather than months. Lieutenant Sophie Davis's tactical station transformed from a simple research console into a command center that could coordinate attacks against thousands of targets simultaneously. Her sensors reached out across the star system and locked onto every swarm unit with precision that the Council had never achieved. "Captain, all weapons are online and ready. Target solutions acquired for all enemy units within the system." Dr. Ryan Palmer's medical bay revealed itself as a combat support center equipped with nanotechnology that could heal battle damage in seconds and life support systems that could keep injured personnel alive through injuries that would kill anyone else. "Captain, all medical systems are active. Nano-repair drones are ready for deployment to assist wounded civilians." Ben opened a communication channel to the swarm units that were attacking New Boston. He wanted them to know what was coming. Unknown. Mechanical entities. This is Captain Ben Rodriguez of the Earth vessel New Horizon. You have attacked human civilians under our protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The swarm units responded by increasing their attack on the colony surface. More mechanical entities landed near the main population centers and began the horrific process of converting living humans into machine components. Their actions told Ben everything he needed to know about the possibility of negotiation. All weapons opened fire, Ben commanded. The New Horizons plasma lances spoke with voices like thunder. Beams of concentrated energy crossed the distance to the colony world in seconds, striking swarm units with precision that vaporized them instantly. The mechanical entities that had seemed invincible against Council weapons simply ceased to exist when touched by human fire. Their adaptive defenses had no time to analyze or counter weapons that operated on principles they had never encountered. Lieutenant Sophie Davis coordinated the attack with efficiency that would have amazed Council military commanders. Direct hits on all primary targets. Swarm units attempting to adapt to our weapons are being destroyed faster than they can modify their defenses. Engaging secondary targets now. Throughout the New Boston system, other human ships dropped their disguises and joined the battle. Admiral Hayes aboard the Peaceful Dawn revealed weapons that could crack moons and defensive systems that made his vessel effectively invulnerable to any attack the swarm could mount. 11 other ships that the Council had believed to be harmless research vessels became instruments of destruction that systematically eliminated every swarm unit in the system. Dr. Ryan Palmer deployed medical drones to the colony surface where they began treating wounded civilians with technology that seemed like magic to anyone watching. Broken bones healed in minutes, severe burns disappeared without scars, and people who had been partially converted by swarm technology found themselves restored to perfect health. Ben watched the tactical display as the last swarm unit in the system was destroyed by plasma fire from the research vessel Gentle Breeze. The entire engagement had lasted less than 20 minutes, but in that time, humanity had revealed capabilities that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. Captain, Sophie said quietly, we are receiving communication. Requests from Council commanders throughout the sector. They want to know what just happened and who we really are. Ben looked at his crew and realized that there was no going back to their old pretense. The secret was out, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. Open a channel to Admiral Hayes. It is time to contact Earth and inform them that the diplomatic mission has ended. President Helen Carter stood before the holographic display in the White House Situation Room, watching as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The secret that humanity had carefully guarded for 3 years was now spreading through Council. Communication networks faster than light could travel. Every alien government was demanding answers about what they had witnessed at New Boston, and the time for pretending had finally ended. General Patricia Stone entered the room carrying data. Pads filled with intelligence reports from human ships throughout Council space. Madam President, the reaction from alien governments has been exactly what we predicted. Shock, fear, confusion, and demands for immediate explanations. High Counselor Vextai has requested an emergency session with all human representatives. Helen nodded as she studied the tactical displays that showed the true scope of humanity's capabilities. For 3 years, Earth had maintained only 12 ships in Council space while keeping their real fleet hidden in systems that alien sensors could never reach. Now the time had come to reveal that humanity possessed over 3,000 vessels, each one more advanced than anything the Council had ever built. Dr. Amanda Brooks looked up from her analysis station where she had been studying void swarm technology captured during the battle in New Boston. Madam President, our examination of the enemy machines confirms what we suspected. The swarm operates using adaptive programming that learns from each encounter, but their technology is still based on principles that we surpassed decades ago. We can defeat them completely if the Council allows us to coordinate the defense. Helen turned to the communication console, where Admiral Kevin Hayes appeared via quantum transmission from his flagship in Council space. Admiral, what is the current status of our diplomatic mission, now that our cover has been exposed? Admiral Hayes looked tired, but relieved that the charade was finally over. Madam President, Commander Jake Morrison is currently meeting with the full Council Assembly to answer their questions about humanity's true capabilities. Ambassador Lisa Carter is providing technical explanations to alien scientists who are struggling to understand how we achieve such advanced technology. The reactions range from amazement to terror. Helen understood those reactions perfectly. For thousands of years, the Council had believed that their civilization represented the peak of galactic achievement. They had built their entire society around the assumption that technological progress followed predictable patterns that they had already mastered. The revelation that a species they considered primitive actually possessed technology centuries beyond their own had shattered their fundamental beliefs about the universe. Captain Ben Rodriguez appeared on another communication channel, his face showing the exhaustion that came from 24 hours of continuous crisis management. Madam President, the colony at New Boston has been secured and all civilians are safe. Our medical teams have treated over 3,000 people who were injured during the swarm attack. The colonists are asking questions about why Earth never told them about our real military capabilities. Helen felt a pang of guilt about the deception that had been necessary to protect humanity's larger interests. The colonists on New Boston had lived for 3 years, believing that their safety depended on Council protection, never knowing that hidden human defense systems watched over them constantly. They had endured fear and uncertainty that could have been avoided if Earth had been honest about their capabilities. Captain Rodriguez, please inform the colonists that their government made difficult choices to protect not just them, but all of humanity. The deception was necessary to prevent a galactic war that could have destroyed both human and alien civilizations. General Stone activated the main display screen to show the current tactical situation throughout Council space. Red markers indicated void swarm positions, while blue markers showed the locations of human vessels that were now operating without their disguises. Madam President, our ships report that swarm forces are regrouping after the defeat at New Boston. They appear to be analyzing our technology and preparing countermeasures. Dr. Amanda Brooks pulled up her analysis of swarm adaptive capabilities. The enemy machines are more sophisticated than we initially believed. They are not just copying our technology. They are trying to understand the principles behind it. Given enough time and data, they might develop effective counters to our weapons. Helen realized that humanity now faced a choice that would determine the future of galactic civilization. They could continue operating alone, using their superior technology to protect human interests while leaving the Council to struggle against the swarm with inadequate weapons. Or they could reveal the full extent of their capabilities and coordinate a joint defense that would save billions of alien lives. Commander, Jake Morrison's voice came through the communication system from the Council chambers, where he was still answering questions from stunned alien representatives. Madam President, High Counselor Vex Tai is requesting a full briefing on human military capabilities and our willingness to assist in the defense against the Void Swarm. The Council is prepared to formally acknowledge Earth as the dominant military power in the galaxy if we agree to share our technology. Helen looked around the Situation Room at the faces of her advisors and military commanders. These people had spent years planning for this moment, but the reality of revealing humanity's secret felt different than their theoretical preparations. The galaxy would never be the same after today, and the choices they made in the next few hours would affect billions of lives for generations to come. Admiral Hayes, what is your assessment of Council capabilities against the Void Swarm if they continue fighting alone? Admiral Hayes consulted his tactical displays before responding. Madam President, without human assistance, the Council forces will be completely destroyed within 2 weeks. The swarm has already adapted to counter most of their weapons, and their tactical doctrine is inadequate for dealing with an enemy that learns from every engagement. We estimate that 70% of inhabited worlds will be consumed before the Council realizes they cannot win. Helen made her decision. General Stone, order all human fleets to full deployment throughout Council space. Dr. Brooks, prepare. Complete technical briefings on our anti-swarm technologies for immediate transmission to alien governments. Commander Morrison, inform the Council that Earth is prepared to coordinate the galactic defense under human command. The room buzzed with activity as her orders were transmitted across space to human forces that had waited 3 years for permission to reveal their true nature. Within hours, the Council would learn that humanity possessed manufacturing capabilities that could build fleets in days rather than months. Weapons that operated on principles alien science had never discovered, and defensive systems that could protect entire star systems from any imaginable threat. Captain Ben Rodriguez reported from New Boston as the first wave of human reinforcements arrived in the system. Madam President, our heavy cruisers are taking positions throughout the sector. The colonists are watching ships decloak that are larger than anything they ever imagined Earth could build. I think they are beginning to understand just how much their government was hiding from them. Dr. Amanda Brooks activated the quantum communication network that connected every human facility in the galaxy. Madam President, all research stations and hidden bases are coming online. We are transmitting anti-swarm countermeasures to Council forces in real time. Their weapons' effectiveness should improve by 300% within the next 6 hours. Helen watched the tactical display as humanity's true fleet deployed throughout Council space. Ships that had been hidden in empty systems for years suddenly appeared near alien worlds, their presence transforming the strategic balance of the entire galaxy. The Council was about to learn that Earth had been protecting them all along, using technology so advanced that their sensors could not even detect it. Admiral Hayes contacted her one final time as the deployment reached completion. Madam President, the Council has formally requested that Earth assume command of all galactic defense forces. High Counselor Vextai has acknowledged that humanity possesses capabilities beyond anything they ever imagined possible. The age of pretending to be a primitive species is officially over. Helen smiled as she realized that humanity's greatest diplomatic achievement had been convincing an advanced galactic civilization that they were harmless students grateful for alien guidance. Now the truth was revealed, and the galaxy would have to adjust to the reality that the youngest species in Council space was also the most powerful. The gloves were off, and everyone would learn what Earth was really capable of when they stopped being polite.